Now, before we really sink our teeth into this new Pallbearer record, I'd like to take a moment to clear the air and update all of you on how I'm doing. A few days ago in a community post, I mentioned that I was feeling pretty shitty and unfortunately had to take a COVID-19 test. Since then, those results have come back. I have tested negative for the virus, thank God for that. But I'm sure, as you can tell, I'm not quite 100% better just yet. I'm sure you've noticed there's still a lot of congestion in my voice. And as a result, I will be postponing our live Halloween party and Blair Witch drinking game. Hopefully, if all goes well, we can maybe do it October 30th, and if not, I'm still aiming for November 7th. In the meantime, I will continue to upload content on the Metal Meltdown so long as I am physically able. And finally, I would like to thank every single one of you for your continued love, support, and patronage. The outpouring of support and compassion, the endless messages and comments that I saw following that aforementioned community post is quite striking to me. It has moved me in ways that I don't know if I could properly communicate. This may not be the biggest community on YouTube, but it is clear to me that the people in this community have some of the biggest hearts. So once again, thank you for your compassion, your understanding, your thoughts, your prayers, your patience, and your undying support. You people truly are fucking beautiful, and I cannot wait to share a proper drink with you when the time comes. Cheers. Alright, we got the mushy gushy shit out of the way. Let's talk about some fucking ripping doom metal from Pallbearer. Forgotten Days is the fourth studio album from American doom metal band Pallbearer, who over the course of the last decade have pretty much been the poster boys for the modern doom scene, responsible for some of the genre's best modern works, such as Foundations of Burden and Heartless. The latter of which I would happily call one of the best albums of the past decade, thanks to its incredible production value and its devastatingly heavy, beautiful, and emotive songwriting and musicianship. For these reasons, Forgotten Days has been one of my most anticipated albums of 2020. I'd even go as far as to say that Pallbearer's particular brand of emotional and immersive doom metal is exactly what we need right now in a year that will be defined by absolute, utter dystopian chaos and buffoonery. And almost unsurprisingly, Forgotten Days does a great job at tapping in to the melodrama of 2020 and creating a very cathartic and relatable experience. To its crushing, dreary soundscapes, to its raw and emotive vocal harmonies and melodies, to its very personal lyrics about isolation and loneliness and the collapse of our mental health and stamina. But ultimately, what I really notice about this album is that this may very well be Pallbearer's biggest as far as presentation and scope is concerned, but also their most accessible as far as songwriting is concerned. Which isn't to say that the band have compromised or abandoned any of the progressive flourishes that made Heartless such a compelling record, because they haven't, and that's made abundantly fucking clear by a number of tracks such as Vengeance and Ruination, Caledonia, the 12-minute monster, Silver Wings, all overflowing with atmospheric vocal textures and passages, dreary progressive guitars, and a kind of gothic ooze and melodrama. But it's not unfair at all to say that an equal number of tracks on this album are a lot more concise and a lot more straight to the point than what we would expect from a typical Pallbearer number. Take, for instance, opening number and title track Forgotten Days, which doesn't waste any time on a long-winded, highly ambitious, atmospheric introduction, instead diving headfirst into the center of your mind with an especially slimy, doomy, dreary old-school riff, something pulled from the glory days of Candlemass, or even some of the most depressing stuff from Black Sabbath. Now, there are some psychedelic textures and effects applied to the vocal harmonies and guitar parts that do make this feel a little weird, a little uneasy, kind of tapping into the mental anguish that we've all experienced in 2020. but not to the point where anyone would be discomforted in any way, even if you were, in theory, brand new to Pallbearer's particular sound and style. Because the focus ultimately remains on the accessible and more easily recognizable traditional songwriting that Pallbearer so consistently utilizes. Not just on this cut, may I add, but also on cuts like Stasis, Riverbed, and especially the Quicksand of Existing. And when applied with the band's vocal harmonies and melodies and the absolutely incredible production value, it gives this album a level of grandeur and a level of size that few doom metal albums are able to achieve. Like, I could picture these songs echoing through a fucking stadium. They are just so fucking massive, so thunderous, so epic, so powerful. As far as presentation is concerned, I don't think calling this doom metal's long-awaited answer to the Black Album would be unfair or unjust. Now, I will admit that at times I did find this album to be pretty predictable. I mean, at this point, the songwriting is pretty easy to follow and thus very easy to figure out, especially if you are a longtime Pallbearer fan and you've been paying attention to the band's evolution and growth. And as such, despite their best efforts, Forgotten Days ultimately did not knock me off my feet or send me into a spiral of despair the way that Heartless did. But what Forgotten Days lacks in originality, it makes up for in incredibly satisfying, meaty fucking riffs, in amazing production value and emotive storytelling and lyrics, in incredible vocal performances and an incredibly accessible presentation, allowing Forgotten Days to become kind of the perfect entry point for anyone who actually wants to get really interested in doom metal. And with all that in mind, I'd still happily give this a very enthusiastic 4 out of 5. I wouldn't agree with the notion that this is Pallbearer's best or most ambitious record, but I do agree that this is one of their biggest albums to date. Chock full of great songs, great musicianship, heartfelt performances, and the kind of atmosphere that, once again, it seems only a band like Pallbearer is able to achieve. I don't see any reason why fans of Pallbearer and modern doom metal will not love the absolute shit out of this record. I would still also recommend this to new doom metal fans, people who maybe don't know much about this band or this genre, but are looking for a really good entry point. I'm curious to see how cathartic and how powerful they find it. I do hope that with the next album we are seeing a little bit more experimentation in the forefront of the sound and in the songwriting, but for now, Forgotten Days is an incredibly satisfying doom metal record, and perhaps just the exact kind of record we need right now. 4 out of 5, a seriously great album from a seriously great band. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately, and you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.